People don't think of music anymore as something they want to own. They think of it as something that should be free. Back in the day, before there was streaming, before there was downloads available to us where we could just snatch a song out of the air with our phones, you had to go buy the whole album. These days, you can just download the one song, or not even that, pay a streaming subscription and stream it.
Today, we're proud to introduce, for the very first time, the brand new Spotify.
Back in my day, we would tour to promote whatever physical product we were trying to sell. Well, these days, you just record projects to try to sell tickets to your tour. The music means nothing these days to people. They don't want to own it. They don't want to buy it. So if you can get people to come out and pay for us $20 or $30 for a ticket for Garth Brooks and Taylor Swift, it's, $1,500 to $7,000 a ticket. It's an experience that people are willing to pay for.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged to have Heath Wright, founding member of the band Ricochet, who has won multiple awards and known best for the #1 country song, Daddy's Money. Heath, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Brady. Thank you, buddy. You said that exactly the way we rehearsed it. I'm proud of you, buddy.
So I had the privilege of seeing you guys the other day. And of course, I'm familiar with your music because I grew up in the 90s, were my time, and when country was king. But what I was surprised by is you guys played in a not just your traditional songs, but you guys did a demonstration of musicianship that I think is very rare in modern music. I don't know how many different instruments you played, but you played the violin, you were playing drums, you were playing guitar. And you played them all and with this tremendous amount of precision and proficiency. It was really an amazing thing to see. I shouldn't say that I was surprised, but I was surprised because I see a lot of shows and I've seen probably over, I don't know, I've been to close to seen 400 live acts, and you really blew me away, man.
Oh, man. You're too kind, Brady. Thank you for saying that. I like to show my band off. I've got just a phenomenal band, and this isn't the original Ricochet by any means. I'm the only original member left, but I've got 4 guys behind me that are all multi-instrumentalists. One of my guys, Uncle Larry, he takes up 6 inputs on a mixing console. He sings a vocal part. He plays steel guitar, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, saxophone, and dobro. So that guy is he's just an amazing musician. My keyboard player doubles on trumpet, and everybody in the band sings a part. So I mean, I'm very lucky to have some really consummate musicians behind me.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about as I've seen acts over the years, and one of the things that I noticed is kind of there's a distinctive difference in the level of musicianship that we see. I don't see people with the command of their instruments like you guys as often nowadays. And what do you attribute? Do you see that? I mean, there are a lot of country bands that still play, but do you see that, and what do you attribute it to?
I blame Guitar Hero. I'm kidding, of course, but in a way I'm not, because I think the generation that was grown up on screens, they have so much more to keep themselves busy, and partly the parents' faults as well, because no kid is going to wake up one day when he's 5, 6, 7 years old and decide that he wants to practice an instrument every day and discipline himself to play that instrument for 30 minutes to an hour a day to get good at something, much less 2 or 3 instruments. It takes a special kind of kid to really be obsessed, for lack of a better word, with instruments these days, because they're obsessed with the screen that's in their hand or right in front of their face 23 hours a day. I mean, it's just it's a different time. Back in my day, we had 3 channels on the television, and there was only a certain time of day you could watch it. And so when I got home from school after the chores were done here at the ranch, I would have some free time before my dad got home and before it's time for dinner. So my mom would say, "Go practice your guitar." And I started taking guitar lessons on the day I was 9 years old. And my birthday, that was my birthday present, was guitar lessons. And I'd had a guitar sitting under my bed for 4 years. I think they got it for me when I was 5, and I beat around on it for a little while and decided it wasn't a toy. shoved it under my bed for 4 years. And then on my 9th birthday, I decided I wanted to learn how to play. Well, a little before my 9th birthday, my mom decided to go find a music teacher here in small town of Violin, Oklahoma. And she wasn't even a guitar teacher. We had one music teacher outside the school system. And she was an old piano teacher. Miss Gertrude McConnell was her name. And she played piano really well. She was old enough that she would tell stories about having played piano in silent movie theaters. You know, so that was, you know, that was the only sound that the moviegoers could hear back then was the piano. And so she taught me how to play guitar from the piano. So she would like play an E note on the keyboard, and she would say, okay, that's an E. That's the very first string on your guitar. If you don't touch it anywhere on the neck, you play it open. That's an E. And so it was kind of ear training for me, as well as, you know, learning how to play the instrument. I got to, you know, hear what it sounded like on a different instrument. And then I just learned, you know, one string at a time, three or four notes at a time. Then we'd move to the next string, and then the next string. And then we started putting notes together for chords. And I was lucky to have Miss Gertrude McConnell to teach me all of the ins and outs of music and music theory. And I just got so obsessed with it when I was, you know, when I was in elementary school and 5th grade, and it was time to either do sports or join the band, because that's pretty much all we had here in, you know, small town, Eastern Oklahoma. I decided I wanted to be, I was already been playing guitar for a little while, so I decided I wanted to be a musician. Unfortunately, at Violin band, we didn't have a guitar position available in the marching band. You know, kind of hard to drag the amplifier behind you on the football field. But so I learned how to play drums then. So that's where I got my drum proficiency, if you want to call it that. I played a little bit of rudimental drums, you know, as a snare drummer, and then eventually as a tri-tom drummer. And, you know, in concert band, I would play the big timpanis, and just fortunately, I just kind of milked the music at the music program here at Violin Public Schools for all it was worth. I never did join the choir though, which is kind of strange. I'm a singer. I'm the lead singer of the band, but I never did join the choir. I just did the band programs.
Yeah. So thanks to Miss Gertrude and your mom for helping you along there. And I think there's something to be said for the attention economy that we have now. There's a lot biting for children's times and a lot biting for everyone's time. But then there's also a difference in parenting. My son speaks near fluent Chinese and near fluent Spanish. And he's also been doing jiu-jitsu for 10 years. And I can tell you that as a parent, if one of the things we've always said is, if you start something, you got to finish it, right? Mm-hmm. And so,
yes.
And they're children. And so there's times when they don't want to do it. And there's a lot of times when your kids aren't going to do it unless you make them. And,
that's exactly right.
And then when their skills develop and they can demonstrate that and they receive accolades for it, they're really grateful that you kept pushing them to do it. But when they wanted to go play basketball instead of practice Chinese or the guitar, you were looked at like, oh, why are you so harsh? Why are you so harsh? But in the end, what we got to do with our kids and what we got to do with ourselves is develop character. And something like an instrument for children is a beautiful way to help develop character, because you're not going to get to that. You're not going to get to that point where that you can show off unless you've put in the time, and time in discomfort is what gets you to these levels. Like you guys, they say that I guess Malcolm Gladwell's book said 10,000 hours of practice before you become an expert. And how old do you think you were by the time you had that many hours?
I've often wondered that. I don't know. I still don't consider myself a maestro or a master on any instrument I play. I mean, I listen to, of course, in today's world, I can scroll through YouTube and find 20 different guitar players that are much better than me. And some of them I know live in Nashville. Even in my genre, and that doesn't even include those guitar players who studied the symphonic level, who studied, the classical guitar, like Andre Segovia and people like that. I want to back up for a minute and say and focus on something that you just said about parents having to sometimes make their kids do something. Because if you let a kid do whatever he wants to, like what it seems to be the parenting philosophy of today, then they're just going to sit in their room all day and play video games. That's all they're going to do. And nobody, you know, I tell, when I used to teach lessons, I told all of my students that, you know, you ain't going to get girls because you're good at Guitar Hero. You're gonna get girls because you're good on guitar. And you know, that might have been one of the motivators for me once I started getting a little bit older, was that it was a pretty cool way to meet girls. But and then when I was 14, I decided I wanted to play violin, or fiddle as we call it. And it's the same instrument, by the way. I don't let anybody tell you that a violin and a fiddle are two different instruments. It's the same instrument, 4 strings, tuned the same way. It's just played differently. So you know, my grandfather had a fiddle that belonged to his dad, my great grandfather, and they got it fixed up and they gave it to me for Christmas one year, the year I turned 14. And so I started working on that. And I'm still not a good fiddle player. I pretty much can get by on Daddy's Money, the one song I play in the show, and there's a couple other songs I can play a little bit. But if I had to hold down a job as a fiddle player in somebody else's band, probably couldn't do it. I could do it on guitar, but not on fiddle. Neither could I do it on drums. I could still go and march in the marching band on drums, and I do every year. We do this thing in Vian, my hometown, called Alumni Play Along Night. So a bunch of us alumni, we get together and we go. The band director gives us the music weeks in advance, and it's coming up actually this October 10th, if I'm not mistaken. We're doing Alumni Play Along Night during the I want to say it's the homecoming game.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's you know, it's fun to be able to dabble in these things that I grew up doing: the drums, fiddle, guitar. Truth is, vocals for me as a singer, I wasn't even the lead singer till I joined what eventually became Ricochet.
yeah.
I was always the guy that would sing 1 or 2 songs to give the lead singer a break, but then I would just sing harmony parts for the rest of the night. So I love harmonies. I love that big vocal sound like the Eagles. You know, I grew up listening to Eagles records, and I just love that beautiful mix of voices when they blend in harmony. And so that's kind of what I built my band around. You'll notice everybody in the band sings a part. Everybody in my band.
Those guys can really sing. Like,
They really can.
And I believe it was your keyboard player that said, "Look, to get this job, when I guess Heath was hiring, you had to be able to belt out some tunes." And then you guys did a portion of the show where every individual had to sing their own song, and everybody could sing. Everybody could really sing.
Hey, it's one of the criteria to be in Ricochet. When I first put the band together back in 1993, 94, I wanted to have a big vocal band. I love, like I mentioned the Eagles, but there's a lot of great vocal bands in country music: Alabama, Restless Heart, Exile. You know, just great vocal bands from the 80s and early 90s that I grew up listening to that I wanted to emulate. Restless Heart is my favorite vocal band in country music.
I love Restless Heart. I was listening to him yesterday.
Well, here's a fun Restless Heart story for you. In about 10 years ago, I got a phone call from a couple of guys. They become friends of mine after I moved to Nashville.
Yeah.
And I was always a fan. I would go to their shows every time they were within a 150-mile radius of Vian, Oklahoma. So I would go see them a lot, and became friends with them over the years. And in I forget what, like I said, it was about 10 or 15 years ago. I lose track of time, but I got a call from them. And they said, "Hey, Larry, the lead singer, Larry Stewart, he is doing a new project called The Front Men of Country. And unfortunately, they have booked some shows that conflicts with some Restless Heart shows. And when we were wondering if you would mind coming in and filling in for him, maybe being the lead vocalist this, you know, for the weekend of October, whatever it was." And I said, "Well, let me think about it." "Hell yeah, dude. I've been practicing 28 years for this gig." "Yeah, of course." So I got to go out on the road and sing lead with Restless Heart in Larry Stewart's place for not just that weekend, but another weekend a few months later. And fast forward 5 or 6 years, they give me another call. They said, "Hey, can you come fill in?" And I said, "For Larry again?" They said, "No, this time for Greg Jennings, the lead guitarist." And I'm like, "Oh, hell." I said, "Well, again, I've been practicing for about 28 years, so let me brush up on his parts." So they sent me what we call a board tape, a mix of the live show, but they soloed his guitar line, so I could just hear, right up front, the guitar, the stuff that he was playing. And I thought I'd been playing these parts right for the last 30 something years. I was wrong. I had to relearn each and every note on the guitar parts, but I did it. It took me 3 or 4 months to get it down, but they gave me plenty of time to work up his parts, and I went out and did 3 or 4 shows as the lead guitarist for Restless Heart. So I've filled in for 2 band members in Restless. They call me the spare tire of Restless
All right.
Heart.
Well, hey, if you're the go-to guy for Restless Heart to call, that means you're doing really well. So they're most famous for the bluest eyes in Texas.
Bluest eyes in Texas are haunting me tonight. Love that song.
It's a beautiful song. Do you know a band, man, when you talk about great like vocals, there's a band called the Mavericks.
Oh yeah.
And that guy,
Rollo?
yeah, he sang their big song in the 90s was "What a Crying Shame," but there was a Mötley Crüe cover album where they had country. It was like a Nashville tribute to Mötley Crüe, and if you haven't listened to this, holy shit. Holy shit. That's like the best album. I'm not joking. It's like the best album I've seen come out since probably like 98, 99.
And it's just the Mavericks, or is it other country artists?
It's a bunch of other bands. But the Mavericks cover Dr. Feelgood. Rascal Flatts does Kickstart My Heart. Gretchen Wilson does the most amazing Wild Side I have ever heard. Like, I heard that and I was like, this lady, Mr. Colin, she should have been a hairband singer. But yeah, do yourself a favor. You'll put that CD in or put it on your MP3 player, and that thing will blow you out your chair. I wish that thing had been promoted different, because that thing stacked with hits, man. That thing is.
So it wasn't like cheap country versions of the song. It was like real rockin' versions.
No, this is very well produced. They got excellent talent, and then their versions. I mean, I don't know, not to Mötley Crüe, but like Gretchen Wilson put the lead singer to shame, man. I mean, I would hate to have to go after Gretchen Wilson on a vocal performance, man.
Well, yeah, she is amazing, and she got her start much like Ricochet did in clubs, mostly clubs there in Nashville on Printer's Alley. That's where John Rich kind of discovered her. John Rich from Big and Rich went into one of the clubs there on Printer's Alley one night, listened to her sing, and went up to her and said, "Hey, why don't you have a deal yet?" And she was just in a mood, and she said, "Oh, so you're going to get me a record deal, right?" And he says, "Well, I might," and introduced himself. And of course, Big and Rich were pretty hot at the time, and I guess John was kind of making his name known as a producer as well. And so he, I guess, produced a project on her and started pitching it to the labels and got her a record deal. So she's part of what we used to call the music mafia there in Nashville.
That's cool, man. So my brother, who's he does really high-end hunting trips around the world, and he has clientele that are like some of them are under NDA. We get like some of the most successful people, and we had a guy that had been a big music producer out in California, and he had worked with everybody and just monster albums and stuff, and it was just fun talking to this guy. I forget his name, but we asked him, of all the singers that you worked with, who was the one that you had to direct the least? Who put it down on wax the quickest? Just who was the overall best singer? And he said it was the guy from the Marshall Tucker Band. And that blew us away, because everyone he'd worked with. In the years that you've been touring, and I know you've worked with everybody at some form or fashion, who are some of the singers that really just blow you away?
Well, I love Vince Gill. He's always been one of my favorites, not just as a singer, but as an overall artist. He is a phenomenal guitar player. A lot of people don't know that he plays several other instruments as well. I want to say banjo, mandolin, fiddle, maybe. Because if you can play mandolin, you can usually play fiddle. They're tuned the same way. But and he's a great producer. That's a hell of a guy. I finally got a chance to meet him and chat with him. He's agreed to be on my new project that I'm doing an all Oklahoma project. That's nothing but Okies. Just every band member that I'm using for the tracking, every guest artist like Vince. I've got Wade Hayes and Becky Hobbs, and Thompson Square has agreed to be on. There's a bunch of really well-known Oklahoma artists, and I decided to do it shortly after they inducted us into the Oklahoma Music Hall of Fame, which was the same month that we lost Toby Keith. And I was like, God dang it, I never did get to do anything with Toby. I never got to write a song with him. I never got to record a project with him. But and then years before that, we'd lost Joe Diffie, and we just started losing all these great Oklahoma singer songwriter musicians. And I'm like, there's so much talent out of this state that somebody, I don't know if anyone's ever done it, but somebody ought to do a project that's just Oklahoma artists. So when you say singers, I think of people like Vince Gill. I think of people like Joe Diffie, who was probably one of the greatest vocalists to ever breathe fresh air. That man was just amazing. He could sing anything. I heard back before he got his record deal that he was a demo singer. He would go into the studio and record 3 sessions a day. Now, a session is 3 hours long. So that's straight singing for 9 hours.
Wow.
And he could do that day after day. He would record the lead vocal part to the songs and then 2 background parts, 2 harmony parts to each and every song. So basically, he would record 3 vocal tracks on each song he was doing, and he would do that for 9 hours a day and not fatigue. I don't know how he did it. He was a workhorse.
Back some people just receive a genetic gift. There's people like Usain Bolt, and there's people like him that just are blessed with something and such a powerful instrument. Hey, why is it that you hear with Rod Stewart? Why is it that some of these guys from singing end up getting throat cancer?
Well, it's probably not from singing. It's probably from the other stuff that they put in their throat. The cigarettes and things of that. Tobacco products. If you put a carcinogen in your body, that you can usually expect to get cancer. I mean, I've never have smoked. Occasionally, I take a cigar and a glass of bourbon, but it's been years since I've even done that. The cigar, not the bourbon. But it's just.
There's the consequences of the regular behavior that causes that. Hey, so I want to ask you a couple questions about the 90s. And so this was, I'm going to age myself here, but that was like the time that it was such a glorious time to be a music fan, because you could go to any genre of music. You would see big acts, you would see talented acts, and then they were actually performers. They like a recording artist was, how they made their money. They sold physical units of music product, but then you had to be able to perform, and it was none of this. They weren't singing over a vocal track. They had to get up there and sing, and then the fan base was like the shows were. Everybody there was tons of sellouts. What was it like for you to be so you were at kind of the peak of country music and you had a #1 song. What was that like for you?
Well, it didn't suck. I tell you that. I loved it. I wasn't married at the time. I just loved being on the road. I mean, I would come home just long enough to do my laundry, pay my bills, maybe do a couple writing appointments, because I had a publishing deal back in the 90s. So I had to turn in so many copyrights a year. I had to turn in so many songs. And so I, would try to book my time at home, which was only 2 or 3 days a week at home. But man, I loved being on the road. I just loved waking up in my bunk every morning in a different city and going and, back then I used to work out a lot. I was in not nearly as good a shape as you're in, but I was close. I was close back in my 20s and my early 30s. And we would find a gym. As soon as we got into town, we would go work out, and then, maybe go to the hotel, get cleaned up, have a little bit of downtime and something that wasn't moving, and then go to the venue and do sound check. After sound check, there was usually dinner, and then we'd get cleaned up and ready for the show. There was usually a VIP meet and greet. So if there was like Fair Board volunteers, or if there was, VIPs from a casino or whatever that wanted to just meet you and have a picture taken with you, you would do that right before the show. And then we'd perform the show. Then we'd sign autographs for the general public. And then we'd get on the bus and go to the next city and do it all over again. So I got into a routine. Even people think, you can't get into a routine unless you're home. But that bus was home for me. And so I, just even though I would wake up in a different city every day, I still had my routine. And I just loved it. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I think if it got to that point again where I was on the road 5-6 days a week and only home a little while, I think I could do that again, because these days we're on the road maybe 2 or 3 days a week. Like the weekend that we saw you, it was a Sunday in Plano, Texas. The day before that, we were in Missouri playing a county fair. And then that was the only 2 gigs of the week. So Saturday and Sunday. So we left Friday night when we were home, Sunday, early Monday morning, because Plano, Texas is only like 5 or 6 hours from my ranch here in Oklahoma. But yeah, I love it. I love being on the road. I love playing to a different audience every night. I mean, and I'm fortunate in the sense that I get to do the fun part. I don't have to like do the load in. I don't even set up my own rig. My tech does that. Your cousin actually, Dylan. He's a great tech to have
Love
on the
him.
road.
Shout out to Dylan
detailed.
Jordan. Hope you're doing well, cousin.
Dylan Jordan, my brother, come see me at the ranch here. We'll smoke a cigar and drink a sip of whiskey or something. All right. Anyway, yeah, he's awesome. He's one of the best techs I've ever had. He's a great sound man. He sets up my rig. He tests it out for me, and all I have to do is get off the bus and come do sound check and then eat dinner and then get ready for the meet and greet and the show. It's just like I said, I'm at a point now in my career that I get to do the fun stuff. Everybody else does most of the work.
Yeah,
most of the hard work.
Dylan plays a mean saxophone too.
He does. I didn't even know he played till one day. I saw him messing around on a saxophone. I said, "Dude, we're putting you in the show. You're now an official Ricochet horn dog."
Hey, so I've talked to other people about this. I had a friend of mine that was a songwriter and a drummer for a really big emo band, and he was single at the time, and then other band married when his song went way up in the charts, and he was single, but some of the other bandmates were married, and he was telling me how difficult it is to stay married when you're on the road, like just like saturated with temptation, and then not being able to communicate and being away from the house for so long. Have you seen that a lot in your experience with all the people you've been around? Is it a difficult thing to stay married when you're on the road and you're successful?
Apparently so, because most of the original guys that I toured with back in the day, including myself, are all divorced. I mean, I was, like I said earlier, I wasn't married during the 90s. I didn't get married till 2005, and I was married for 6 years to my son's mother. And then we got a divorce, and then we were divorced for 6 years, and then we got married again in 2017, and we made it all the way to 2021, I think, and got divorced again. So yeah, I've only been married to one woman, but I've been married twice. But all the guys, I mean, you're right. Your friend is right. I mean, there's temptation everywhere, and there's just women, beautiful women that just, I don't know how to say this. They don't care if you're married or not. Many of the women out there that
They're
follow
aggressive.
bands around, they don't care if you're married or not, and they just want to spend an evening with you, or sometime, however you want to spend that time. And I'm trying to be politically correct here and not say anything, but they do make, sometimes some of them make it very easy for a man to forget that he's got a wife at home.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny when someone's like when someone's a real famous or a notable subject. It's almost like, how all the dogs like try to mark the fire hydrant or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's like everyone wants their name on that guy, right? And so everyone wants to say they marked him. Yeah, that's got to be tough. Look at my face. I haven't had the same problem, but yeah. So now, when country back in the '90s, when the album sales and what the genre was producing was such a significant part of the total music consumption, you had like the giant artists. I saw that now on the all-time album sales list that Garth Brooks is second, right? And he's only behind the Beatles. And of course, Garth did it different. If you still to this day, he makes it tough for us to get his music. You can't access it on Apple Music or Spotify, but you had to go buy it from Walmart or a place like that, and you had to buy harder. First of all, why did he do that? Was that because they didn't like the cut of the margin?
Yeah, probably so. And again, it was a brilliant business move. As far as the business model goes, it was brilliant, because if you'll think about it, back in the day, before there was streaming, before there was downloads available to us where we could just snatch a song out of the air with our phones, you had to go buy, if you liked Daddy's Money, for example, Daddy's Money was your favorite Ricochet song, you had to go buy the whole album. You had to go get this CD right behind me. You had to get that to get Daddy's money. These days, you can just download the one song, or not even that, pay a streaming subscription and stream it. People don't think of music anymore as something they want to own. They think of it as something that should be free, that they can just stream through their phone and rent it for however long they want to listen to it, and then throw it away. But back in my day, I've got over 700 CDs in my collection. I've just started collecting vinyl again because my son bought me a nice record player a few years ago. And to me, I'm one of those guys that I want to own it. I want to hold it in my hand. Even when downloads first came out, downloads was only 99 cents a piece. Vince Gill once said, people have to make a decision. There's a song that I've worked hard to write, and I've put together a group of musicians to go into the recording studio, and I've rented studio time, and I've paid a producer to help me produce this single and take this thing that was an idea in my head and make it an actual product that someone can download out of the air and put on their phone. They have to make the decision on whether or not they want that 99-cent download or the 99-cent download that makes fart noises. So there's an app that you can download that's just nothing but fart noises, and it's 99 cents. At least this was Vince Gill's story. And the consumer has to make the decision, which one of those do they want? So, and these days you don't even have to pay 99 cents for it. Yet nobody downloads anymore. Like I said, everybody just streams it.
Yeah.
Music is such a throwaway thing these days to the general public, which is why, to back up and cover something you said earlier, back in my day, we would tour to promote whatever physical product we were trying to sell. And that was how, that was the promotion for our new project. Well, these days you just record projects to try to sell tickets to your tour, because the music means nothing these days to people. They don't want to own it, they don't want to buy it, but they do want the experience of seeing you live. So if you can get people to come out and pay for us $20 or $30 for a ticket, for Garth Brooks and Taylor Swift, it's $1,500 to $7,000 a ticket. It's an experience that people are willing to pay for.